Well, I greet you in the wonderful name of our Lord Jesus Christ. I'm greeting you here from the TEN campus in South Africa. Teach Every Nation is delighted to bring leaders from around the world. We've had about 10,000 leaders from over 100 countries come to the campus to be equipped principally to take the Bible school on wheels and start Bible schools around the world. Our goal is a Bible school for every 50,000 people in the country. And today I have the privilege to have leaders from India here, and it's our together vision to start 30,000 Bible schools through local churches, missions groups, and help the body of Christ not only to believe the gospel, not only to become Christian, but to become what Jesus calls disciples. So our organization has a way to understand us. One way is 3 C's. I'm going to start with the first C, and this is this campus here in South Africa. What a wonderful gift of God where we bring leaders together for 4 or 5 days. They're here in nature. They see incredible spaces and places. In the afternoon, they have fellowship and network and rest. We just want to bless them. There's a lot of networking that happens on this campus. And we come here and we train people in the Bible School on Wheels how to be deans, how to facilitate this life-changing content that is head, heart, and hand. But we also film courses here. We filmed the Biblical Portrait of Marriage, a course that I love to teach, Discover Yourself and Others. But today we're teaching something on a very relevant and important topic that is going to influence the second C, all countries, everywhere. And this is the topic of AI. And we have our first TEN talk called AI and the Church. And this is the introduction. Now, Teach Every Nation, when we bring you a teacher, we don't necessarily look how many degrees the person have. Although our teacher, Don Barger, has a PhD. We really look for practitioners, people that are actually implementers. People with a story, people that are doing things. And that's what marks our faculty. So Don and I are going to talk about AI, but I discovered him on a Zoom, and we became friends. He's here with his dear wife, Jen, and I want you, without further ado, I want you to welcome Don Barger to teach us on the church and AI. Give him a big hand. Don, this is going to be an exciting session.
I'm excited.
You and I had the mutual experience of going through an AI introduction with MIT.
Yes, we did.
You had a group with the Southern Baptist or the IMB. How many of you did this course?
There were about 8 of us that went through the course. Not as many as you.
8 of you, and you then came out of that, and now you are the head of innovation and AI for the IMB.
Yes.
And we had the privilege, we had an idea of how we were going to really get to some of our goals was through teamwork and technology. And then we saw this course, and we had 27 of our network and our staff enroll in this. And we were blessed that Dr. Bruce Wilkinson, our founder, got really excited about the possibilities with AI. And so we've been on this journey now it's going to get closer to 2 years.
Yes.
And things have changed a lot.
It has.
And I'm excited. You're a practitioner, you're an expert, and you've already blessed my thinking in our discussion. And I know that you're helping people around the world understand the reality, the power, and the implications of AI. We look forward to these sessions with you.
All right.
Let's
get started.
Let's get started.
All right. So as he said, over the next few sessions, we're going to be going through what he coined 10 talks. And these 10 talks will be brief sessions where we address one issue related to AI in the church. So this session, I want to do an introduction just to get us started. And before we delve into the deeper topics of things, we're going to get started with this one, and we'll give you some explanations and get started, and then we'll delve into it. First, my name is Don Barger. I'm the Director of Innovation and Artificial Intelligence for the International Mission Board. I lived overseas for around 24 years. I lived most of that time, or all that time was in Latin America. And now I live in Richmond, Virginia, which is where our headquarters for the International Mission Board is located. The IMB has missionaries serving all over the world. And we're dedicated, like everyone else in this room, to addressing the world's greatest problem, which is lostness. You know, a lot of organizations think that if we could just feed people, if we could just give them clean water, if we can just get them better clothing or better jobs, that's going to fix their problems. But we know that the biggest problem people face is lostness. So that's what we're dedicated to doing. And we're working with partners like you to make sure that God is proclaimed and Jesus is proclaimed to all peoples and all places. In my role at the IMB, I lead a group, and we're dedicated to see the gospel lived out and Revelation 7:9 lived out amongst all peoples and places. And that means that we can't be stuck in the way that we've done things forever. We can't look and say, well, this is the tradition. This is how we do it. We can't change. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how the church, we can get in our ruts and say, well, no, I'm opposed to that because it's not the way we do it. So we have to be open to looking at the world with 2025 eyes, which is the year that we're in right now. We've got to look at it with a fresh perspective, and we've got to look at it from the newest generations that are coming up. So that may be a challenge for some of us, but that is what we're about. I lead a team of innovation innovators around the world in the IMB, and it's interesting because some of the innovations that we're involved in are things like digital engagement. You know, who thought 15 years ago or 10 years ago that you could, from anywhere in the world, on your little device in your hand, have conversations with people all over the world? But that's what's happening today. Governments will shut down the border and you can't get in physically, but we can get in digitally. And so we do digital engagement strategies where we engage people online where they are, and we are able to share our faith with them, win people to Christ, disciple them, and even train people digitally. And so we have big problems that we're trying to solve, and we have to look for big solutions. And I truly believe that AI is a gift that God has given the church to help us address enormous problems that years ago we wouldn't even have thought we could begin to address. So I will say, sometimes when I meet people and they ask, so tell me about yourself, and I say, well, I'm the director of innovation in AI, they look at me and they go, the church and AI? I had someone reach out to me not long ago on LinkedIn, and he was kind of hostile, and he said, I don't understand, why in the world would the church need to have anybody dealing with innovation? Isn't the Bible set? There's nothing to innovate. And this was from a dear brother, a Christian. And I had to explain to him that we, in AI and innovation, we're looking at new ways of doing things. We're not changing the Bible, but we're changing our approaches. And so I think it's unfortunate that too often the church is seen as not being innovative. Oftentimes people look at us as if we're backwards and we're opposed to being to new ideas and new ways of looking at things. And sometimes we own that because there's a lot of churches and a lot of leaders who are very closed to doing things differently. But you know, if you look back on history, the church has been at the forefront of innovation since the beginning. How we do healthcare today, heavily influenced by church. How we do agriculture, influenced by the church. How we shaped our civilization through music and through the printing press, farming techniques. The church has always been at the forefront of these innovations. And so for some reason, over the past few generations, we've kind of become known as the anti-innovation crowd. And I'm here to lobby that if that's your mindset, for just the next couple of days, dream about what if. Dream about how might we do whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. And I firmly believe that AI is going to help us in that. I'm not here today to talk about getting the church to be innovative, but that'd be a whole nother 10 talk if we want to do that. We could do a whole series of that. So let's get started. All right. So what changed? Why do you think it is that the church that once was the organization that brought us so many of the innovations that we have today is now so reluctant to change? Well, some experts think that there's this fear of risk or fear of failure. And I will say that has been my experience. When we started rolling out AI, many of the questions that we got were, but what if this doesn't work? Or what if it does this? Or what if it does that? Or what if it fill in the blank? And there's a reluctance or an aversion to change or an aversion to anything that's new because they're worried about things changing. I'll tell you though, the world is changing so fast that we cannot afford to be the people who are sitting in the back with our heads buried in the sand, trying to protect the way we've done things forever. So another problem that I've seen in rolling out this is there's a focus on maintenance over ministry. So many times churches are in survival mode and they can't break out of that survival mode. So they get inwardly focused and they try to build up themselves, build their own kingdoms. And they're not building the biblical model of multiplication and expansion. They're really maintaining the status quo. Another issue that I've dealt with when we roll this out, and you're going to run into this if you try to use AI in your churches, is institutionalization. We can make innovation very, very difficult. And we avoid failure to the point that we defend the established way of doing things at all cost. And as you look at these books that you're using, the Superbook and the materials that have been done to present to you and to let you use in your churches, that process of getting that material contextualized and translated is a very meticulous and a long process. It's very expensive and takes a lot of time. And I'm here to tell you, AI is going to revolutionize how we do translation for materials like what TEN provides. AI, that's translation is only one of the things. And the really nice thing is the cost is significantly cheaper. Another thing is there's been a cultural shift in trust. I know the reasons for this, but I think that the church has an uphill battle because of just sin that we've got to call out, scandals and sins that have made it so much more difficult for us in the church to lead as innovators. So the democratization of information is changing how the world gets information. You know, at one point, there were times where the church actually controlled the information flow to people. There was a place where I learned Spanish, and I was sharing a story with my neighbor. And I was telling her the Jonah story. I was trying to learn Spanish, and I was butchering it. And as I was doing it, she told me, I've never heard that story before. Is that in the Bible? And I, how do you not know this story? Have you not read your Bible? And she said, oh, no. My priest says I'm not allowed to read my Bible because I'm not able to understand it. Only the priest can understand. And that's not been that long ago. And so we sometimes have been seen as the guardian of information, and we try to control that flow. Well, I'm here to tell you that in the day of AI, you cannot do that any longer. AI has been the great democratizer of information, and everyone has access to information now. So, how might we approach AI in the church? Can the church use AI in an ethical way that can actually advance the gospel to all peoples and all places? What do you think? Can the church do that? Is it possible to use AI? Well, good news. That's the topic of the series of these coming talks. So, I want to ask you a question. Last night we were at a beautiful place here on the campus, and Martin asked the question, how many of you use AI every week? And I looked around the room, and there weren't a lot of hands that went up. There were a few, but not a lot. So I just want to ask, let me know, how many of you use AI? Maybe on a weekly basis. Yeah. So more today than last night. I don't know what happened, but there's more today than last night. Are there some of you who are maybe afraid of AI? Yeah, maybe raise your hand. We're not gonna call you out, but or do you have concerns about using AI? Yeah. Do people in your church have concerns about using AI? Yeah. As I speak with people, I run into this a lot. People are very, very concerned. They're very scared about AI. If I'm honest, I have serious concerns about some of the ways that AI is being used. I'm here to tell you that I don't blindly go into the use of AI and not recognizing the problems. We'll have an entire session on AI ethics and how to use AI and how not to use AI. But I want you to go into this, and if you're watching this at home, I want you to go into this with an open mind and to think about how might we use AI. Don't make up your mind right now that AI is not useful. You know, AI is a tool. It's a technology. But if you hold a pencil in your hand, that pencil is a technology. It's a tool. And so just as AI can be used for bad things, a pencil can be used for bad things. A pen can be used for bad things. Paper can be used for bad things. So we don't discount using those products or those tools because they might be used for evil. And so I challenge you to enter into this discussion, this series of talks on AI with an open mind and to see how might we use AI. All right. So November 30th, 2022 was a day that will go down in history, I'm convinced, as is important as the day that Gutenberg did the printing press. This date was the day that OpenAI allowed the world access to what they called ChatGPT. I was on it the first day. So I have been looking at AI long before this day, but if I were to be honest with you, I didn't understand a lot of the stuff that I was doing. And there were really, really smart people who I went to meetings with, and I would leave there going, I don't know what they were talking about, but I really like what they're doing. So Martin introduced me as a practitioner, and I really am. I'm more on the practitioner side. I'm not a data scientist. I don't have a PhD in physics. I have a PhD in theology, and so I'm not the person that is out building all of these tools from scratch. I have a data scientist on my team, an AI engineer, but I really am in the practitioner side of things to try to help the church and help leaders understand how you could use AI and help the developers understand the things that we need to use AI. You know, at this date, November 30th, 2022, that is the date that AI went from becoming a niche tool that was only used by data scientists and physics majors and computer programmers to being used by everybody all over the world. You know, the very first conference I went to on AI was in 2019, long before this. And at that point, I knew this was an important tool. I just could not comprehend in 2019 what this tool could do. Quickly, we went from the day where everything was being done by a handful of people to something that most of the people in the world, or many people in the world, are using, and they don't even understand it. And so I want to look at how fast things are changing. So these are some innovations that I was thinking about of how long did it take each one of these things to get 1 million people using this tool? So let's look at the microwave oven. I'm old enough to remember the first microwave oven in our neighborhood and would watch. My mom would send me over to their house to have meat defrosted in their microwave oven. It was amazing. So it took 30 years for there to be 1 million people in the world using a microwave oven. Cell phones, it took 12 years to get to 1 million users of cell phones. I still remember my first cell phone. Like I said, I'm old. It was a big old bag that I carried around and pulled a phone out that had a cord on it, and I would hold it up, and it cost way too much to use. Television, how long did it take to get 1 million users? 8 years for 1 million users of a television. Internet, 7 years. Anybody remember the internet when it was dialing up and it was making all that noise and all that racket and it would be super slow, and now we're complaining if we don't have instant access to everything. The personal computer, I remember my very first computer, 3 years to get it to 1 million users for the personal computer, not the big mainframes, but the personal computer. Okay, iPhone. This is so we're getting into 74 days to get to 1 million users of the iPhone. So you want to take a guess how long it took ChatGPT to get to 1 million users? 30 days? Year? A week? Yeah. Let's see. 5 days. 5 days. These other things, you look at the microwave oven and the cell phone and the television, these things have had a major impact on the world and in civilization. ChatGPT went from being nothing that anyone had ever heard about to being used by 1 million people in only 5 days. As you can see, the time frame for innovation is getting a lot shorter. Today, nearly 1 in 10 people on Earth use ChatGPT at least once a week. So that includes 1-year-olds and we're not saying they're on it, but if you were to take out the people who physically can't use ChatGPT and put them into the mix, the number of users of ChatGPT are amazing. And that's just one AI tool. And it's not even the tool that I use the most. But 1 in 10 users. It's being used 3 billion times a day right now. So this is a technology that's been around a very short period of time. Coming up on 3 years, we went from nobody has ever heard of ChatGPT to it being in everybody's pocket, and they're using it all of the time. You may wonder, why is this important? We can just live without it. We can do our thing. The church doesn't need to look at this. We've got God's word, and that's all we need. We don't need to use any other ways of engaging with it. Well, I look around the room. Most of the people in the room, my age. Most of the people in the room are from my generation. But I want you to look at the future. The future are virtual natives. I didn't grow up with a cell phone. I didn't grow up with something I walked around with the technology. My tablet was an Etch-a-Sketch. I don't know if you remember the Etch-a-Sketch. You move these little knobs and it did these crazy things. That was my technology. These are virtual natives that we have had now. Basically, anybody born after around 2004 is a virtual native. And these people were born in the virtual reality world that we live in today. They're not just digital natives, they're virtual natives. That's important because as the church changes, as the church ages, you are going to see that influence in the church, and you've got to be ready for it. You know that by 2030, 30% of the church will be Gen Z. That will have an impact on your church. We can't control, we don't have the ability to say, well, this is the way we do it. We don't accept anything else. We're not going to use AI. You will not be able to control that. 1/3 of your church will be that. An interesting statistic that I've also seen is 60% of Gen Z, of these virtual natives, spend more time with friends in digital spaces than they do in physical spaces. They feel like it is just as valid to have a relationship with someone on the other side of the world as it is to the person that lives next door to them. So these are just some realities that we are going to have to deal with. So AI, let me conclude this first 10 talk with this story. So in 2021, at my organization, After ChatGPT came out, I'd been doing some work with AI, using some other tools before ChatGPT, doing some audio recordings and videos. Looking back now, they were really bad compared to what we can do today. And I'd kind of gotten some attention of some folks who had seen some of the things we were doing. And our organization decided we need to pull together a task force. How are we going to deal with AI? How are we going to deal with this? And I was excited because I was seeing all the possibilities of how we're going to use AI. I went to the first meeting, and that first meeting was supposed to be an hour long. And an hour and 25 minutes into an hour-long meeting, all we had talked about was the fear of AI. And how are we going to defend against AI? Well, at the end of that, I raised my hand and said, hey, we haven't spent any time talking about how God can use AI to redeem a lost world, how we can use it on the offensive instead of only looking at AI from the defensive. We were looking at how do we protect ourselves. And today, I'm happy to say that our organization, as well as TEN, is looking at how are we going to use AI for the gospel? How are we going to use it proactively, safely, but how are we going to use it proactively? So my hope in these sessions that we're going to cover as we're covering AI, my hope is that these 10 talk sessions lead you to consider how you and your church can use AI to see Revelation 7:9 become a reality.
You just presented to leaders from India and South Africa. You talked about your AI journey, and you gave an introduction and helped people to understand what AI is and isn't. It's 2 years later since you've done the MIT course, and I had the joy of doing it, and we got our whole network into it. How has AI changed your thinking and life?
Wow. I mean, that's a big question because, one, I want to go back to the MIT course. I would love to see what they're teaching today because I'm sure that it has totally changed since we went through it a couple of years ago. But, when we first started looking at AI, I never dreamed that we would be creating some of the tools that we're creating today. And we're using it for translation in such ways that I knew we could do translation, but it required so much more human involvement in the translation process. Today, we still have human involvement, and I think we should always have human involvement in the process, but that involvement is so much less than it was in the past. So video creation and chatbots and automations, helping with workflows, just something that have nothing to do with the missionary task, but everything to do about making the life of workers be a lot easier and less monotonous. All the stuff that we hate doing, we could just automate now.
Yeah, because we are created in the image of God. And I don't think doing monotonous work is the best usage of our creativity.
Absolutely.
And godly design for our lives.
I get asked by a lot of mission organizations, so how can we implement AI at our organization? And, one of the things that I'm very quick to say is it is impossible to bring about this type of change unless your senior most leadership is embracing this change. You have to have your senior most leadership see the potential and ask what would happen if we tried this question. And so I'm very fortunate. Our president and EVP and all of our VPs are all supportive. Now, it didn't hurt that they've gone through the same AI trainings that we went through. And they left that without they still have concerns, as all of us should, but they saw the potential and they see that we can do things better, faster, and with more integrity sometimes than you could do if you don't use these tools.
Well, I think we had a similar experience. Our founder and chairman of our board, Dr. Bruce Wilkinson, he's been an innovator for over 50 years, with just incredible creative ways of communicating scripture, the Old and New Testament seminar, with the movements to help things, transparencies, PowerPoint, all those things. And then when he saw this, he got his creative team, we have an incredible group of 3 that use some outsourcing as well. And they did Dare to Dream Again. It was a story. It's like Pilgrim's Progress.
Yeah.
And you've seen the images on it. Now, those images would have taken a Hollywood studio and a big cast of people a tremendous time to do. And here, 3 people and himself committed to innovation and creativity did this course that is amazingly beautiful and helping to communicate the story that they want to tell.
Yeah. First of all, if you want to work in the innovation space and you want to be somebody like him who has come up with incredible tools and ideas, you can't be afraid to fail. And you've got to be willing to take a chance. And so we look at things that people do and we go, wow, look at all this stuff that they've done. But what we don't see is all the things that people try along the way and they learn from it. And so I don't see things that didn't work as a failure that we should go, oh, we shouldn't have done that. I see informed innovation as trying something, not being afraid to say this isn't working, killing it, backing up, starting over again, and moving forward. But each one of those iterations, we're learning. And so there may be something we create over here that looks like, wow, you created this and it only took you 3 months.
And what's incredible now is that even the MIT course, when we did it, it felt a little bit dated.
Yes.
Because things were so quick.
Yes.
And then my friend Steve Clearly of iBible, he's using now AI to animate Bible stories.
Much faster.
He told me that 3 weeks ago, they discovered solutions that just was a game changer. And so in this space, your conclusions on AI is never going to be final because things change. And not just the technology and the platform. You said in the video here that you used to say just the practical implications for people. That AI will not take your job.
Someone who knows how to use AI will take your job. I don't say that anymore. I say that AI will take a lot of jobs. I think we need to be honest and we need to realize that there's a lot of jobs that will not exist 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. That shouldn't be surprising. 125 years ago in New York City, there were a lot of people who had the job of shoeing horses. I don't know that there's 10 people in New York City today that their primary job is to shoe horses. That innovation of the car changed all of that.
All of it, and it gave new jobs and new opportunities. You know what it did? Technology gave speed. You know, you travel around the world. I have the privilege of doing it. If it wasn't for airplanes, if we had to do it like
if you had to take the boat.
The boat, and missionaries did that. And I think why we are so committed to AI is because the Great Commission is an exponential goal of taking the gospel and making disciples of all nations. And the speed that the church was working at, I didn't see the end game in my lifetime. Now I do.
I don't think we are even able to keep pace with the growth, especially in the global South.